Boom 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 boom.
You know that feeling, right? When a story just completely grabs you.
Oh, yeah.
The kind that just stays with you, maybe for days the characters feel, I don't know, real.
Absolutely. Feels like magic. Pure magic.
Exactly. But what if? What if some of that magic is actually, like, engineered, built on purpose?
Well, that's the fascinating thing. The magic is definitely in the telling, the artistry, no doubt. But underpinning it, often there's this remarkably solid intentional structure.
And that's what we're digging into today, right?
That's exactly it. We're looking at the fundamental building blocks, the nuts and bolts of stories that really stick, drawing on some deep thinking inspired by Robert McKee's work.
Okay. So our source material really gets into these core components that storytellers use. Sometimes they know it. Sometimes maybe it's instinct to create those experiences that just resonate. So the mission for this deep dive is to understand these key bits: scene, plot, crisis, climax, and resolution. Not just definitions, but how they're actually used.
How they work as tools.
Yeah, tools to build that power, that connection you feel in, you know, classic books, plays, even those big Oscar-winning animations.
And honestly, once you start seeing this structure,
Yeah.
you can't unsee it. It really changes how you take in stories.
How so?
Well, you shift from just like feeling the magic to understanding how it's being made.
Yeah.
Why certain bits hit you hard, where the trick is, so to speak.
It gives you a new appreciation.
A much deeper one, yeah,
Yeah.
for the actual craft involved.
Okay, let's do it. Let's pull back the curtain. Where do we start? The smallest piece.
The absolute foundation, the scene.
Right. Now, I think most people figure a scene is just, you know, they're in one place for a while or a sequence of actions happen. But this is more specific.
Much more specific. McKee really pins it down. A scene, fundamentally, is defined by one critical thing. It has to create a clear, meaningful value shift in the character's life.
A value shift.
Yeah. If that shift doesn't happen, according to this view, it doesn't matter how long it goes on or what happens. It's not technically a complete scene.
Right. Okay, value shift. What
Yeah.
kind of values are we talking about here? Not like stock market values.
No, definitely not. We're talking core human values, things that are really at stake for the character, like hope or safety, love, trust, freedom, justice,
Confidence.
confidence, absolutely,
Yeah.
even life versus death. So a scene starts with the character somewhere on the scale of one of these values, say. They start feeling hopeful, positive.
Okay.
And by the end of that scene, something happens, something they do or experience that shifts that value. Maybe hope goes up, maybe it gets totally crushed. Positive to negative or negative to positive.
Okay. So the example in the source, the couple arguing, that makes sense now.
Right.
They could move rooms, go outside even, but if the whole argument is chipping away at their trust,
And that trust value keeps dropping throughout that whole interaction.
it's all one scene because
Yeah.
it's tracking that single shift around trust.
Exactly. Or, a character walks into a big meeting feeling super confident.
Yeah.
Value, positive. The scene happens, maybe it's tough, they get pushed back, and they leave full of doubt. Value, negative.
Really, that's the engine.
That's the engine of the scene. Without that change, that value shift related to the character's situation, the scene is just static, dramatically speaking. Stuff might be happening, but the story isn't moving forward in a meaningful way for the character.
So these value shifts in scenes, they're like the tiny little steps the story takes. The bricks.
Perfectly put, they are the bricks. And crucially, this shift isn't just like random chance striking the character.
Oh, right. It has to connect to them.
It has to be linked to what the character does, their choices, how they struggle to get something or fight against something. The Aki famine example mentioned in the source, a disaster is awful, an event.
Yeah.
But it doesn't become a story scene until you focus on a character struggling within it. And that struggle causes a value shift for them. Maybe they go from feeling safe to being in danger because of their actions, or from despair to finding a tiny bit of hope through effort. The change has to come from how they engage.
Okay, so we've got these micro-engines, the scenes, driven by value shifts tied to action. How do these bricks build the house? How do they come together into a whole story? This is plot, right? Or ole or gusu.
That's exactly where plot comes in. And it's way more than just what happens next or stringing events together.
Or just surprises.
Right, not just surprises. McKee really stresses that plot is about the conscious, deliberate selection and arrangement of events. It's designing them to create a specific, meaningful journey for the audience, a sense of a complete, purposeful whole.
Okay, And the source breaks plot down into, what, 3 main kinds?
Yeah, 3 main design approaches, you could say. There's the classical design, which is often called the arch plot, then the mini plot, or a mini plot, and finally the anti-plot, or anti-plot.
Classical design sounds like the one we see most often. Mainstream movies, those animated films like The Lion King, the source mentioned.
It's definitely the dominant form, yeah.
Yeah.
And it works very well. Key features are usually an active protagonist. They're driving the story forward.
Making things happen.
Exactly. There's typically a clear external conflict.
Right.
You know, person versus person, person versus nature, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Events are linked really strongly by cause and effect. A leads to B leads to C. And it almost always wraps up with a closed ending. The main conflict gets resolved, questions answered. You get that satisfying sense of closure.
Okay, clear structure, clear ending. How do the mini-plot and anti-plot differ then? They move away from that.
They do in different ways. The mini-plot often shifts the focus inward. More internal conflict.
Character struggling with themselves.
Precisely. Less about a big external fight. The main character might even be more passive, reacting rather than driving. You might have fewer big plot events, more focus on character nuance or mood.
And the ending.
Often open-ended. Mini-plots frequently leave things hanging a bit, leave you thinking, invite interpretation. It's less about solving everything, more about showing a slice of life, maybe.
So maybe more for character studies or indie dramas?
Often, yeah. Films that want to explore the internal landscape more than race to a finish line. And then you got anti-plot.
The Rebel.
Yeah, the rebel is a good way to put it. Anti-plot throws out the rule book. It deliberately messes with our usual expectations of story.
How so?
It might question reality itself within the film. It might lean into coincidence, randomness, instead of clear cause and effect. It can feel disjointed, non-linear, really experimental.
Why do that?
Often to make a point, maybe about chaos or meaninglessness, or just to make the audience question the whole idea of storytelling. It's provocative.
So understanding these structures, it's like decoding the filmmaker's blueprint.
It really is. You start to see the choices they made. Are they going for that big, satisfying arc, a quiet internal journey, or are they trying to shake things up entirely? The plot structure is a huge clue to their intention.
Okay, so we've gone from the scene's value shift up to the overall plot architecture. Now let's zero in on a specific high-tension moment within that structure. The crisis, Kriz. The source says it's where the character gets cornered.
Yeah, that's a great description. The crisis is that point where all the conflicts, all the pressures that have been building up, usually kicked off by the inciting incident way back before, they all converge and force the character into a corner. They have to make a choice.
No more avoiding it.
Exactly. And it's usually a really tough decision, one that feels like it can't be undone, irreversible. All the narrative tension ramps up towards this moment. It's often the scene the audience is subconsciously bracing for.
That Option Us, Hunter, film example, the deer scene, Michael's choice there, that sounds like a perfect crisis moment.
It's a classic example. He's tracked by circumstance, the pressure is immense, and he's forced into this impossible decision.
And that decision, it reveals everything.
It really does. It strips away all the masks. The crisis choice shows you who the character really is, deep down. What are their true values? What are they willing to sacrifice when everything's on the line?
And the source pointed out, the best crises aren't just simple good versus evil.
No, absolutely not. Those can be okay. But the really powerful ones, they often force a choice between two bad options. A lesser of two evils? Or maybe even harder, a choice between two goods.
Two goods. How's that work?
Like, you have to choose which good thing to pursue, knowing you'll lose the other. Save the person you love or save the city. Both are good. But making the choice is agonizing and tells you so much about the character's priorities. That complexity makes it way more compelling.
And delaying that decision, you mentioned Thelma and Louise, that just ramps up the tension for us watching.
Oh, massively. The longer the story holds off on that inevitable must-make decision, the more the pressure builds. It's like a ticking clock. We're just waiting for it to go off. It's a really effective tool.
So all that tension, that pressure cooker, it has to explode somewhere.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the peak, the climax. Zerv, this is the big one, where McKee says films often live or die in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, the climax is the payoff. It's the moment or sequence where all that stored up narrative energy is finally released. It's where the main conflict, the central question of the story, is confronted head on and ultimately answered.
It's the biggest moment of change.
Absolutely. The biggest risk, the biggest confrontation, and the point where the most significant, irreversible change happens to the character, to the situation, to the whole story world. Every scene, every plot point, every crisis has been leading up to this.
So a weak climax can just kill the whole thing, the blind date example.
It really can wreck it. If that peak moment feels flat or unearned or just doesn't deliver on the stakes that were built up, it leaves a bad taste. It can make you feel like the whole journey wasn't worth it.
But a strong one can save a film.
Definitely. A really powerful, satisfying climax can make you forgive earlier bumps in the road. It can elevate the entire experience, make it memorable. Like that Kiss of the Spider-Woman example, the ending just resonates.
So the climax has to resolve that main conflict we've been tracking.
It must. And it needs to do it in a way that feels emotionally resonant and meaningful. It has to provide that catharsis, that satisfaction the audience has been waiting for. It's the story's final, big answer to its central problem.
Okay, climax hits, big change happens, main question answered. What then? What happens after the explosion? We get the cool down, the resolution, sozum.
Exactly. The resolution is everything that follows the climax. It's where things settle down. We see the immediate aftermath, the consequences of the climax, and how the world looks now after that major upheaval.
And there are different ways to end it, the source says.
Yeah, several flavors. You got the closed ending. This is probably the most common, especially in classical design.
Everything tied up.
Pretty much. Loose ends are tied, big questions answered. Is a real sense of finality. Done, finished. Could be happy, could be sad, but it's definitely over.
But not all stories want that neat bow.
Nope. So then you have the open-ended or poetic ending. Think of a film like Paris, Texas. Some questions might linger. Things are left a bit ambiguous.
Makes you think.
Exactly. It invites you, the audience, to interpret, to fill in the gaps. Maybe carry the story on in your own head. The feeling of completion comes more from a resonant final image or idea than from solving every puzzle.
Interesting. And the ironic ending.
That's a really complex one, like Othello. It's where the ending mixes victory and loss, gain and tragedy.
You're sweet.
Or sometimes just bitter. The character might achieve their goal, but at a terrible cost. Or maybe the victory reveals something hollow or devastating. It leaves you with really mixed feelings, often quite profound ones about the whole struggle.
But no matter which type, closed, open, ironic, the resolution's job is to land the plane, basically.
That's a good way to put it. It brings the narrative arc to its conclusion, gives the audience a chance to absorb the climax and understand the final state of things. It provides that necessary feeling that the story is complete in its own way.
Wow. Okay, so looking back at all of it, from those tiny but crucial value shifts driving each scene, which are then carefully chosen and arranged into a specific plot structure, classical, mini, or anti. Right.
Building pressure towards that make-or-break decision in the crisis.
That point of no return.
Exploding in the climax where the biggest change happens.
The ultimate confrontation.
And then settling into a final resolution, whatever shape it takes. It's really clear that the magic we feel isn't just random, it's constructed carefully.
It's the engineering beneath the art, truly. You don't see the scaffolding when you look at the finished building, but it's what holds it all up, gives it shape, gives it impact.
Okay, so here's something for you, the listener, to take away from this deep dive. Think about a movie you love, one you know really well, maybe seen a bunch of times.
Could be anything.
Yeah.
Lion King, like we mentioned, or your personal favorite.
Yeah. Next time you're thinking about it, or maybe even just see a clip. Try to spot these things.
Yeah.
Try to pinpoint, where was the character's crisis?
Yeah.
That moment they were cornered, had to choose.
And then what was the actual climax? The single biggest confrontation, the point of most dramatic change. Not just the end, but the peak moment. See if you can glimpse that structure, that skeleton, underneath the surface. It doesn't take away the magic, does it?
Not at all. If anything, it just makes you appreciate the skill involved even more.
Adds a whole new layer. That's perfectly put. Well, thank you for walking us through this incredible framework.
My pleasure. It's fascinating stuff.
And thank you for joining us on this deep dive into how unforgettable stories get built.
Boom 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 boom.